Hello there, this is the 6th edition and you're welcome. I'm Nell Tagbe coming to you live from our studios in Abuja. Our top stories at this hour. A federal high court in Abuja remands 9 suspects over deadly Benue killings. Trading resumes at Onitsha main market as over 70% of shops open after sit-at-home closure. Ex-Chinese Justice Minister Tang Yijun gets life sentence amid Xi's anti-graft crackdown. We'll bring you details in a moment. Just stay with us. 9 men accused of involvement in the deadly Yelwata attack in Benue State have pleaded not guilty to terrorism-related charges at the Federal High Court in Abuja. The arraignment comes a day after the federal government announced plans to prosecute the suspects. The defendants were brought before Justice Joyce Abdul Malik, where they pleaded not guilty to the amended charges filed by the prosecution. The defense counsel reacted to the multiple charges filed against the defendants, saying the case should be determined by evidence and not the number of counts.
54 charges, that means 54 accusations. Anybody can make an accusation. But the important thing is you have the onus of proof beyond reasonable doubt. I can say you did this, you stole this, you did that. But you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt. So we're not concerned about the number of charges. Let us get to the issue of proof. If you can prove beyond reasonable doubt. So we're not worried with the number of charges.
Has issued a stern warning to Nigerian authorities regarding the security of Yelwata. He stated he appealed to the government to be liable if the community suffered another attack. Babir, who led reconstruction efforts for the community, emphasized that temporary security is insufficient. He insisted that the Nigerian government must provide permanent protection to prevent further bloodshed. The Humanitarian confirmed his work has full backing from U.S. officials, including Congressman Riley Moore. The U.S. authorities are reportedly monitoring Yelwata's geographical coordinates to ensure the community's safety. Babir's appeal highlights the ongoing vulnerability of Benue State populations. He urged local officials to prioritize their citizens' lives and ensure the newly rebuilt Yelwata is never destroyed again.
If something happens in Yelwata after this rebuilding, the government is liable. The blood is on your hands. We've come in good faith, with good heart, to help the people, to rebuild where nobody is helping. But you are responsible to secure your own people. And there's security here now, but we can't see that they leave in 1 month or 2 months. I can't come back and see that Yelwata has been burned and killed again. If it happens, you are liable. It is your job to protect them. And so I challenge you, I beg you, do your job. Protect your own people. The U.S. government knows what has been done here. They know the attack. They know that I am here. They know that we have rebuilt Yelwata, and they support me. Congressman Riley Moore, he supports what we're doing. He knows. He has the geographical coordinates of Yelwata. And we are all monitoring what is happening here. So please, protect your people. Do not let anything happen to Yelwata again. Thank you.
And we do have Alexander Babir, 28-year-old missionary, founder of Building Zion organization, having an ongoing mission work and operations in Nigeria, Sudan, and DRC, Burma, Syria, etc. Rebuild burned villages, build churches, schools, clinics, drill water. Well, we have him here in the studio, and Alexander, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Is it your first time in Nigeria?
No. I actually have spent almost half of my life in Nigeria over the past year alone. So I've spent time in the spring last year. I spent 2 months going across Kano, Bauchi, Plateau. I came back in October, November, December, and I'm back. So we've had a large presence over the past year.
Okay. But as a missionary, this is not also your first time to Africa?
No.
Where else have you been to?
Yeah, so I began originally in Kenya. We went to the Maasai tribe, the Turkana tribe. We went to the northeast towards Garissa to be able to help build churches among people who've never heard of Christ. And that kind of pushed me deeper to Burundi, one of the poorest countries in the world, to build homes for widows, to drill water wells where they have no access to water. And the more time I spent in Africa, it really just pushed me to go deeper, to really go to the people who never heard of Christ, to go to the places where Christians are persecuted, where they need our help and need our support.
So you came to Benue State, and your presence, so to speak, has, how they say, rattled some feathers.
Yeah.
And some are concerned that what you're doing is fueling a narrative which is not supposed to be, a narrative of religious genocide. Yeah.
I guess the question I would ask is, if there's no genocide, if there's no religion involved, what is the reasoning? You know, I've been told it's grazing. They're just looking for grass for their cows. And I would ask the question, if it's only for grass, then this means that their own Fulani brothers who are also herding cattle and looking for grass, they're also their competitors. And so why are they only killing Christians? Why are they only targeting Christian villages? They're not killing their own people. They're not burning their own Fulani settlements, but they're competitors. The same grass they're fighting for. And so what's the answer to this? Why are they only killing the Christians in the Christian villages?
Have you been to the camp of the dispersed people?
Yes, I have.
And what did you see?
Yeah, I was in international market where a lot of the Yowata people have been displaced to. And from the testimonies from the people, they have little food, little water. I saw them publicly defecating, pooping, and peeing there in the street among the little shops and the little stores. I was in Guer West, the heart of displacement. 90% of people in Guer West have been abandoning their homes, displaced. And many of them are living in Agagbe, in little grass huts. They said that they receive food maybe every 3 or 4 months from the government. They have nothing. They've been forced off of their lands and nobody is fighting back. They've accepted this to be displaced.
Is your humanitarian service targeted at only Christians? Because
No.
that's what a lot of people.
Yeah. You know, the heart of why I'm here is Christ. It is because I am a Christian. I'm a follower of Christ. I've been called to make disciples of all nations, to share the gospel to every tribe, every tongue, every nation. But where we build, the people we help many Muslims. In fact, we built a school in Kano. We built churches. We're building schools in Bauchi. We're building ongoing in Kebbi. We have planes in Taraba, Adamawa. We have planes everywhere. And so we literally built a school for primarily Muslim people in Kano, in the rural area. And these Muslims are benefiting because there is no education. There is an Islamic school to teach Islam, but no school to teach people how to read, how to write, how to do math. They weren't caring for them. And so we went in to be able to care for those people, Muslims, Fulani.
In an Islamic school to teach them, because you felt that they were not learning how to read and write?
No, there was no active school in that area.
Okay.
No school at all. We built the first school.
You were part of, or you attended the funeral ceremonies of the Sling community. So
Yes.
tell us what you saw.
Yeah, you know, I was actually on my way traveling to Benue to be able to continue the rebuilding of Yowata village. And I received a notice that there was a killing. The 7 Christians were killed in Kuru on the way that we were leaving. And I said, I have to go. We have to be alongside the people who are suffering and are afflicted. And when I pulled into Kuru, we went to the mortuary. They hadn't begun the funeral, nothing yet. And the DPO refused me to access the mortuary. He said there is nothing to report, that there was not an attack.
Who refused you to access?
The DPO, the local DPO of Kuru. He refused our entry. He said there wasn't an attack, that there was a mining accident. And he said there's nothing to report here, so we were held up. And so we talked to Ezekiel Dacomo. He was already on his way. We already were talking with him. And we talked to the local leaders, the youth leader, everybody. They came to my rescue. They said, no, he's entering. And so I went in. And what did I see? Bullet wounds. Blood was still literally being pulled out. It was splattering. The bullet holes in his head, in his stomach. Blood was coming out. I have videos of this. If you want videos, I have videos. I have pictures. The proof that there was an attack. They were not just an accident. It didn't collapse. They were murdered in cold blood by Fulani.
You're very definite when you use the word that they were murdered.
Yes.
Is it because of the bullets you saw, the type of injuries you saw on the bodies? That's what's giving you this evidence that they are murdered, or you have eyewitness reports?
This is what they reported. There was no accident. What do bullet holes generally tell? Who killed them? Because they don't have the AK-47s. They didn't shoot themselves. 7 of them.
Tell us about Reverend Ezekiel Bachum.
Yeah, I think he's an incredible man. You know, he's been the most prominent voice for the afflicted, for the persecuted, the Christians who are being killed. And he's even been speaking about the Muslims who also have been killed in Zamfara, Katsina, in Borno, and Yobe. You know, there was a mosque that was blown up by ISWAP. And so both of us together, we don't deny that Muslims are being killed. They are being killed. But the point that we want to make is that disproportionately Christians are being targeted and murdered specifically across the Middle Belt, in Kaduna, in Plateau, in Bauchi, in Niger, Adamawa, Taraba. And so we both are bringing light to this issue, and that's what we need to tend to.
Alex, before we let you go, one word you would have for the government and for the people, what would that be?
It's a tough question. You know, the government is responsible for its people. And for 2 decades, they've allowed their own to be slaughtered, including Muslims. Killed, burned, slaughtered like sheep, burned like charcoal. I've seen the bodies, even little babies that are just lumps of charcoal sitting on the floor. I've seen bones in the rubble. I've held the bones. They are allowing this for 2 decades. And so the Nigerian government needs to be accountable. They need to tell the truth. And they need to protect their own people. That's what we're calling for. I can't control the government. I'm not a politician. I don't deal with politics. I'm a missionary. I tell of Christ. I speak of Christ. I share the gospel. I teach that it is Christ who saves, that he is the way, the truth, and the life. And if I'm to be a Christian, that means I'm to tell the truth. If I'm to be a Christian, I am to hold people accountable. If I'm to be a Christian, I am to speak for justice, to speak for the ones who don't have a voice. And so the Nigerian government needs to be accountable. They need to protect their people.
Thank you so much. We've been speaking with Alexander Babir, who's a missionary who's been in Benue State and building, or rather rebuilding and helping to the people of Yelwata to return to their homes after they had been displaced. Well, thank you once again.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
We'll take a moment and we'll come back. Dr. Agbo, good evening.
Dr. Agbo, yeah, good evening.
How are you doing, sir?
Fantastic.
Thank you for coming in.
Same here.
All right. Can you tilt your device down? Is it possible? Just slightly.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We can work with this.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Aisha, say something.
Hello, can you hear me? Good evening.
He's in Abuja.
Yes, he's in Abuja.
And there's something on the screen, upgrade to Pro. Welcome back and on to health matters as tributes continue to pour in over the demise of fast-rising Nigerian musician Ifunanya Nwangene following a snake bite at her Abuja apartment on Saturday, January the 31st, 2026. Questions and controversies have emerged around the emergency response and treatment she got at the health care facilities visited. Concerns about non-availability of anti-snake venom claims the Federal Medical Center Abuja has since strongly denied in a press statement, adding that medical staff provided immediate and appropriate treatment, including resuscitation efforts, intravenous fluids, intranasal oxygen, and the administration of polyvalent snake antivenom. But the patient had suffered severe neurotoxic complications from the snake bite, despite all efforts to stabilize her condition. Snakebite envenoming remains a neglected public health crisis in Nigeria, claiming approximately 2,000 lives annually. Over the last 2 decades, between 2006 and 2026, the country has consistently recorded some of the highest morbidity and mortality rates in Africa, driven by the prevalence of the African saw-scaled viper, Echis ocellatus. While reported snake bites cases rose from 15,000 to 25,000 annually, fatality rates dropped significantly due to Equitab antivenom. Vulnerability has also shifted, now heavily impacting both rural farmers and displaced persons across Nigeria. Nearly 60% of snakebite deaths occur in Gombe, Bauchi, Plateau, and Benue. During harvest, Kaltungo Hospital treats at least 100 cases monthly, though the 2017 anti-venom shortage tragically caused over 250 fatalities across the region. Nearly 82% of victims seek traditional healers first, causing fatal delays. High costs of anti-venom like Equitab and poor rural cold chain storage further impede recovery for vulnerable farmers and herders facing daily occupational risk. I'm being joined in the studio by my colleague Aisha Saliu, who earlier visited the Federal Medical Center in Jabi, and she just here to give us some update. Aisha, what did you yes, you went to the FMC in Jabi. What was the reception like? Obviously not too interesting.
Well, earlier we were at the Federal Medical Center in Jabi to speak to the hospital management regarding how they handled this tragic situation. I mean, Saturday, this young, promising, fast-rising Nigerian artist lost her life in their premises. But the reception, I'd say they received me well, but then they said they can't grant interviews at this moment because they had already put out a press statement. And part of what they put out in their press statement was that they were debunking claims, because there are now viral claims on the social media suggesting that FMC in particular had no anti-venom available. But then the statement says that they had administered the anti-venom to the patient who's now deceased, but due to the delay and, bringing her to the hospital, and they tried all the resuscitation efforts and everything you would expect for an emergency case, but sadly the venom had gone into her system, and that was we had the result that we're seeing now. But I think this also brings to bear the issue of there are two issues here. People taking cognizance of their environment. I mean, we understand that, yes, climate change is here, and the weather also has an impact on driving out these reptiles, these snakes, animals into the society, causing more human interaction, because I understand that once you're able to at least clean your environment, ensure that there are no broken pipes from the water system, toilet seats and all of that, I think that would go a long way. But the issue now is that a lot of people are negligent regarding taking care of their own environment, and also on the part of the healthcare system. One would want to know, once issues like this come up, the first point of care or call should be the primary healthcare centers. But in this case, it looks as if even as the patient visited the private facility at first, where they said they didn't have the antivenom available before she moved on to the Federal Medical Center. And sadly, even though they claimed they administered the antivenom, tragically,
she couldn't make it. All right, thank you so much, Aisha. But we're also being joined by Dr. Agbo Ebuta, family physician, State House Medical Center, joins us virtually. Dr. Ebuta, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Let's start out with the matter of, yes, this has happened, but what should have been the first thing, first aid, what should have been the first thing to do in this kind of situation?
Okay, based on the information we have, I mean, it's very unfortunate. The precise snake that was suspected to have been responsible for this scenario is the cobra. Now, the spitting cobra, which is a very common snake in the Nigerian scenario, is known to cause death within 15 minutes. In fact, within 15 minutes of clinically significant envenomation, a patient can die typically of respiratory failure because the toxins find their way into the body, diffuse through the nerves, and stop the nerves from working. Now, you require your nerves to power the muscles, and if the nerves are gone and your muscles aren't working, that's respiratory failure. It can even kill an elephant within hours. To a large extent, once the envenomation has occurred, you're counting minutes to maximum hours, and all steps have to be taken to get that patient to the designated facility that has the capacity. In the immediate, once it happens, of course, one of the things you want to do is that you want to just quickly wipe up the place, clean up the place, avoid unnecessary trauma to the place, no tourniquets, no sucking, no biting. These are typical traditional behaviors that have been passed on from generations, which have been shown to be ineffective. So you don't tie a tourniquet, you don't bite, you don't suck, you don't cut. What you do is that you immobilize that part of the body where the bite has taken place. Now, that immobilization, to a large extent, will reduce the rate at which the toxin will diffuse. Of course, there will be local swelling if the envenomation or if the bite is that from a snake that has envenomation capacity, but you will first and foremost get this person to a near facility that has the capacity. So that brings up the issue of designated facilities. Nigeria is a very big country, 50 million people. So you need to be able to enumerate facilities that have this capacity, because this capacity to treat snake bites, envenomation requires some basic interventions. Now, these interventions require cold chain in place, blood bank supply in place, and a couple of other medications, and of course, the trained human resource on ground to provide the kind of care. To a large extent, when this situation is not met, then and there's no timely intervention, outcomes like what we've seen is potentially possible. Of course, you've called out the values. Per year, we are seeing between 20,000 to 40,000 bites are reported, and 10% of that number of our fellow citizens unfortunately succumb.
From what you've said now, the primary healthcare centers can't be the first port of call, or shouldn't be the first port of call. Let's put it that way.
Well, not necessarily. The definition of primary healthcare centers can actually be expanded. So let's look at this from this point of view. You would have primary healthcare accredited centers by the National Health Insurance cut across the government scenario or the government-backed centers. You are looking at probably between 8,000 to 17,000 active primary healthcare centers that has received some intervention from the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund just recently. So these facilities should have some level of capacity to react. Let us also understand that it's not all snake bites that lead to envenomation. Most of them not lead to envenomation, but you need to get the patient to a center and for that person to be assessed. Can it be addressed in a primary healthcare center? yes, if the human resource there is trained, and if the facility has some form of structure that ensures there's cold chain, that the venom is available. In this case, the most preferred one is Echitab, and that you have support services like support services to do some basic transfusion of blood where there's loss, and then to set up a line and give fluids. Now, you should also, primary healthcare center is frameworked on the fact that you should have a link to a secondary healthcare center, and when necessary, a tertiary healthcare center. So it's important that in as much as primary healthcare centers are structured to provide first aid, immediate intervention, and to take decisions on whether to continue to give service, the designated secondary health center where you would refer a patient to should be very clearly communicated to all the gatekeepers in primary healthcare centers. So to tidy up that statement, primary healthcare centers with the right training and some basic interventions should be able to provide this care.
But let's look at the home front, on the side of the victim, so to speak. How do we ensure or prevent snake bites in the first place? Yes, we've talked about ensuring that there are no broken pipes or containers that are likely to create space for these snakes to hide in. What else can we do to ensure that we are protected, or we protect ourselves from snakes entering our homes? And should they even get into the homes, what should be done?
Well, the first and foremost is that housing has to be properly structured and properly built. It should be snake-proof to a large extent. Snake-proof houses are houses that do not have all those crevices and holes and cracks that will allow snakes to seep to pass through into the house. In addition to that, you should not have waste collection areas too near the house where you have rodents running all over the place or frogs jumping around and attracting snakes, because there are delicacies for these snakes, and that is how the snakes themselves survive. It's interesting to also know that most of these snakes bite as a form of protection against aggression. So what happens is that when you see a snake, you should step away. You should not try to take pictures or try to take take pictures for social media, or try to fight or kill the snake if you do not have the capacity to. You should avoid the snakes, because even the cobra, the spitting cobra, like the incriminated snake in this case, has the capacity to spit across meters and targeting the eye of the potential assailant or aggressor. So to a large extent, number one, we need to build snake-proof houses, no cracks, no crevices. We need to avoid storing waste near the houses that will attract rats or rodents, where snakes would now try to use them as delicacies. And there are also other interventions like fumigation. Fumigation has been shown to be quite effective. The use of some tablets which discourage snakes from coming near the house has also been very, very quite effective. But in all of this, it's also important to understand that once a person is bitten by a snake, it's a matter of minutes to hours, and first aid must be immediate. Immobilize that leg and move the person to a facility that has been pre-designated as a snake bite treatment center.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Agbo Ebuta is a family physician at the State House Medical Center. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you. We'll go on a quick break. When we return, court restrains NLC TUC from planned FCT protests. Stay with us for details. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, here's a recap of our top stories. Federal High Court in Abuja remands 9 suspects over deadly Benue killings. Trading resumes at Onitsha main market as over 70% of shops open after sit-at-home closure. Ex-Chinese Justice Minister gets life sentence amid Xi's anti-graft crackdown. Now, trading resumed at the Onitsha main market on Monday with over 70% of the shops open across major sections, including Lagos, Ado, Mandela, and the White House lines. The market had been closed last Monday after traders ignored Anambra State's sit-at-home directive. Governor Chukwuma Soludo warned the closure would continue if compliance was not observed, with security agencies enforcing the order. By mid-morning, normal business resumed, with traders and shoppers moving freely. Now, the National Industrial Court has issued an interim order restraining the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress from embarking on any form of industrial action or protest in the Federal Capital Territory. Justice Emmanuel Sibilim granted the order on Monday following an ex parte application filed by the Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, and the FCT administration. The ruling effectively halts a mass protest that was scheduled to commence on Tuesday, February the 3rd. The court also directed security agencies to ensure there is no breakdown of law and order within the nation's capital. The FCT administration had approached the court, citing a mobilization message sent to affiliated unions which allegedly violated previous judicial orders. Despite an earlier ruling on January 27, the NLC and TUC had reportedly directed workers to intensify the strike, arguing that an appeal had been filed against the interlocutory injunction. The FCT maintains that this position is a deliberate attempt to cause civil unrest. The court has now adjourned the matter to February the 3rd for the hearing of the motion on notice. All parties are expected to maintain the status quo pending the determination of the substantive suit.
The court, in its wisdom, has given an order restraining the NLC, trade union, and all the labor unions from embarking on strike in violation of the prior court order, and then also directing the security agencies, the police, the FCT, Inspector General of Police, the Civil Defense, and DSS to ensure that the order of court is complied with, because we are in a constitutional democracy. We are operated by the rule of law. Labor unions are organizations registered under the Trade Union Act. They are bound to obey the court. They are bound to obey the directives of the court, to obey the constitution of this country, and I advise them to comply with this order of court for the purpose of industrial peace and harmony.
Let's return to market stories, but this time in Kano. An early morning fire has destroyed sections of Singa Market, one of Kano's busiest commercial hubs. The blaze broke out around 3:16 a.m., prompting a swift response from the Kano State Fire Service. The spokesperson, Saminu Yusuf, says the firefighters were immediately deployed to contain the fire. As of mid-morning, parts of the market were still burning, with crews working to prevent the flames from spreading further. Authorities are assessing the full extent of the damage. No casualties have been reported. Nigeria has once again taken center stage in global energy discussions as policymakers, industry leaders, and investors converge on Abuja for the Nigeria International Energy Summit 2026. Held under the theme Energy for Peace and Prosperity, Securing Our Shared Future, the summit focuses on energy security, investment, and sustainable development. Our report captures key highlights.
The Nigeria International Energy Summit brings together top government officials and sector stakeholders to chart a clearer path for Nigeria's oil and gas future while balancing economic growth and stability. Discussions centered on boosting production, attracting investment, and positioning Nigeria as a reliable global energy supplier.
Nigeria's opportunities are enormous. The field is big enough for both Nigerian companies and EPC companies to operate at a globally competitive, price. But what we found was a situation where we promoted middlemen. We didn't really grow the capacity of even Nigerian companies.
The gas value chain offers unparalleled opportunities for job creation, industrial clustering, and regional integration. These opportunities, however, can be sustained if local companies possess these requisite skills, technology, financing, and governance standards to compete at that scale.
Beyond policy direction, attention also turned to infrastructure development local content growth, and strengthening the midstream and downstream sectors to drive inclusive prosperity. Stakeholders say collaboration remains key to securing Nigeria's shared energy future.
True local content is not defined by percentages on paper. It is measured by the depth of domestic capability, the sophistication of local supply chains, the quality of jobs created, and the ability of Nigerian and African firms to compete first regionally and ultimately globally.
To understand what beyond compliance truly means, we must reflect on three pillars that determine the continent's destiny: competence, capacity utilization, and collaboration.
As discussions continue, stakeholders say outcomes from the summit are expected to shape key policies, investments, and partnerships critical to long-term growth and stability. In Abuja, for News Central, Sumaya Abubakar.
Nigeria today co-hosted the Investopia Forum with the United Arab Emirates in Lagos as part of efforts to attract global investors and boost sustainable investment inflows into the country. The high-level event convened investors, innovators, policymakers, and business leaders aimed at converting emerging opportunities into concrete commitments and turning ideas into viable investments. Speaking at the forum, the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, alongside our UAE counterpart Mohammed Hassan Al-Suwaidi, highlighted the strategic importance of the partnership and its potential to unlock new economic growth opportunities for both countries.
This is a testament to the Tinubu administration. You have UAE capital in country, the Minister of Investment, my counterpart here for the first time in Nigeria, with some big leading investors. And this signals an important opportunity. We want to build our economy, infrastructure, agriculture, solid minerals, across the board, tourism. There's so many sectors. UAE has capital. We have the people, the space, the opportunity, and they've come to see for themselves. We've been cultivating this relationship. You know, we have the SEPA that was signed in the presence of our two presidents 2 weeks ago. And so this is it. Game on. It's time to do business. Thank you.
You know, mining, again, huge opportunity, requires a lot of infrastructure. And so I see a lot of opportunity. Now, translating that is getting information, being able to find either a private sector or a government to be a partner with a government or private sector on my side, making sure that they have all the information to make the right decision.
Diplomatic ties between South Africa and Israel continue to be strained as the two countries expelled each other's envoys. Shortly on Friday, after DIRCO announced the expulsion of Israeli diplomat Ariel Seidman, Israel reacted by declaring South Africa's senior diplomat Sean Beinvet persona non grata and gave him 72 hours to leave the country. Seidman is charged with repeatedly using official Israeli social media platforms to insult President Cyril Ramaphosa, as well as deliberately failing to inform DIRCO of visits by senior Israeli officials to the country. A department says such actions represent a gross abuse of diplomatic privilege and undermine South Africa's sovereign authority. I'm now being joined by Israeli journalist Roland Marks. I also have the chairperson of South Africa's Jewish Board of Directors, Danny Mofsweets, joining us virtually as well. Thank you, ladies, for joining us.
Having us. Thank you.
Let me start off with you, Roland. Expelling South Africa's envoy, that was on. That's a reaction to what South Africa did. Was it really necessary?
Well, I think South Africa has taken an extremely hostile stance against the state of Israel, the Jewish state, even prior to the 7th of October. And it is absolutely confounding why South Africa decided without telling the chargé d'affaires. In fact, he found out about the fact that he was being expelled from the country from the media, who doorstopped him when he returned from an event to his embassy in Pretoria. The South African government's Department of International Relations and Cooperations, DIRCO, said it was because of abuse of the diplomatic norms by insulting the president, and then also said they failed to inform the government of a visit to the Eastern Cape. Now, I spend quite a lot of time on social media. I see the embassy social media profiles, and I do not see any insults towards the president of South Africa. What I do see from the Israeli embassy in South Africa is outreach to a community in the Eastern Cape. This is a part of the country that faces drought, that has no water, that has no functioning infrastructure, that has hospitals that are falling apart. I see Israel reaching out the hand of friendship to these municipalities, to the communities, attending these places at the request of the king of the Abu Tembu to come and help the communities, because Israel is a global leader in water technology, in agricultural technology, and in healthcare. This is Israel trying to help the people of South Africa that the ANC have failed to help, and now, instead of maybe softening their approach to the Jewish state, have decided to expel the chargé d'affaires. I want to be clear, it wasn't an ambassador, it was the chargé d'affaires. And Israel in turn saying, well, if this is the type of treatment that our diplomats are going to face, we will do the same, and we will expel South Africa's ambassador to Ramallah.
We'll take a very short moment and go on a quick break. When we come back, Danny, I'll come to you. Is this something that couldn't have been sorted out over a conversation? Did we have to do expulsions on both sides? But we'll do that in a few moments. Please just stay on with us. Welcome back. I still have with me Israeli journalist Roland Marks and the chairperson of the South Africa Jewish Board of Directors, Danny Movsowit. So, Danny, we've heard from Roland talk about the things that led up to the chargé d'affaires being expelled from South Africa. But the question I wanted to ask is, was it really necessary for Israel to have responded the same way? I mean, wasn't it possible to have had a dialogue to sort these matters out?
So, firstly, thank you and good evening to your viewers. Our view on this issue between South Africa and Israel remains the same as it always has. The South African Jewish Board of Deputies, we've always called on the South African government to play a meaningful role in negotiating a peace in the region. Given South Africa's incredible history of peace and reconciliation, we've always pleaded with our government to take that route rather than the punitive measures that we've seen it taking. And further to this, South Africa particularly is becoming almost uniquely positioned as the ANC, who was our former government, have very openly friendly relationships with Hamas and can therefore reach out to them to broker some sort of peace. But instead, they've chosen to be punitive. Unfortunately, when it came to creating a peace plan, 25 nations, amongst them Malaysia, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, they were all invited to sit around a table in Egypt, and South Africa was left out. And as a South African, that's a very, very sad thing. It's been a very punitive approach rather than a constructive one. And it's very, very sad that South Africa has lost out on having a seat at that table. So South Africa has had a very punitive approach. And I suppose the knock-on effect is that Israel has retaliated. Unfortunately, the people who stand to lose here are South African citizens who are visiting Israel and Israeli citizens who are visiting South Africa. unfortunately, not having a presence in either country hurts both of those citizens.
So between the two of you, we have just a few seconds here, 30 seconds each, if you can just split that out. What's the way forward? Let me start out with you, Rolling, and come back to you, Danny. What's the way forward?
Well, there's always a hope that cool heads will prevail and some kind of return to dialogue. I want to be clear that this is not what I'm seeing as representative of the entire South African government. I think when we speak about the government in South Africa, we have to remember that there are other parties as well that are very supportive of the state of Israel and are also very supportive of the incredible position that the state of Israel has to help, as they have with other countries in Africa, help South Africa deal with some of the challenges. And I agree with Danny, the government has taken a punitive approach instead of one of dialogue. There are elements within the South African government that has aligned with some of the most tyrannical regimes in the world. And we hope that in the future, the government will be more reflective of the people of South Africa, and we can see a return to dialogue, as Danny so correctly mentioned. It's part of the South African ethos. I know that from Israel's stance, we would be open, as we have said before, to any country that wants to engage in dialogue and in peace with us.
Danny?
I agree with Rolene. I think, post 7 October, it took the president of South Africa, President Ramaphosa, 7 days to condemn, not even to condemn the attack, but to acknowledge that there was an attack on Israel by Hamas. And we, even as a Jewish community here in South Africa, we've got to put that aside. We've got to move forward. And I think that all parties have to put their differences aside in the mission to get peace in that region. We've got to put aside our differences and work towards that common goal.
All right, thank you so much, Israeli journalist Rolene Marks and the chairperson of South Africa Jewish Board of Directors, Danny Motzowitz. Thank you so much for coming this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Moving on, at least 7 people have died in Madagascar as a tropical cyclone Fytia swept across the island over the weekend. The storm hit early Saturday with wind gusts up to 210 kilometers per hour before moving away on Sunday. 1 victim died in the capital, Antananarivo, while another remains missing after being swept away by a swollen river. Over 20,000 residents were displaced as heavy rains and strong winds caused widespread damage. Fytia is the 5th tropical storm to hit Madagascar since September, with the cyclone season expected to continue until March or April. A Chinese court has handed a former Justice Minister, Tang Yijun, a life sentence on corruption charges as part of Beijing's ongoing anti-graft campaign. Tang was found guilty of accepting nearly $20 million in bribes over more than a decade. The Xiamen Intermediate People's Court said he used his official positions between 2006 and 2022 to secure benefits for companies and individuals in exchange for payment. He facilitated IPOs, bank loans, and land acquisitions while serving in senior roles, including Justice Minister between 2020 and 2023, Governor of Liaoning Province, and the Communist Party Chief of Ningbo. The ruling underscores President Xi Jinping's sweeping anti-corruption drive, which critics claim is also used to sideline political rivals. Public transport across Germany was heavily disrupted on Monday as transport workers staged a nationwide strike, grounding buses, trams, and regional trains. The industrial action, organized by labor unions, forced widespread cancellations and left commuters scrambling for alternatives. The strike stems from ongoing disputes over pay, staffing, and working conditions, while negotiations still at a standstill. Authorities say emergency services remain operational, and talks are expected to continue in a bid to restore normal services and limit further disruptions.
Es fährt ja gar nichts, man hat viel zu laufen. Entweder muss man sich einen Fahrdienst suchen. Ansonsten, ich fahre jetzt bin jetzt hier laufen, dann fahre ich mit der S-Bahn ganze Weile bis Malzow und von da aus habe ich doch 30 Minuten zu laufen. Das ist denn nicht so schön. Ja, bei dem Wetter auch nicht so schön, weil draußen Malzow ist ja doch noch viel Schnee und alles so glatt, kalt, ist nicht gut, nicht gut angebracht.
Ja, also für einen Streik ist es nie die richtige Zeit, wenn man damit betroffen ist. Aber ich kann durchaus nachvollziehen, dass man versucht natürlich seine Position wieder zu stärken und auch das Geld von seinem Arbeitgeber zu bekommen. Das kann ich nachvollziehen. Ist natürlich immer blöd, dass wir als Nutzer der BVG dann halt ja darunter leiden. Aber ja, das ist Arbeitskampf.
And that's it on the 6th edition for today. Well, here's a recap of our major stories. Federal High Court in Abuja remands 9 suspects over deadly Benue killings. Trading resumes at Onitsha main market as over 70% of shops open after sit-at-home closure. Ex-Chinese Justice Minister gets life sentence amid Xi's anti-graft crackdown. We'd like to hear from you. Please send us your weakness, your comments, and eyewitness reports to the WhatsApp number showing on your screen. Follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. That's on all the social media platforms where you can also watch News Central live. Plus, DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, StarTimes channel 274, Able TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Nail Taibi.